Hello and welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Julie Matusik, and I will be moderating today's webinar. We are very excited to introduce to you in just a few minutes the presenters, the stars of the show for today, but want to go over a few items and a few housekeeping items in particular before. If you are joining us online for today's webinar, you can listen directly through your computer speakers. If you have joined via the phone number provided, your line has been muted to minimize background noise. And for those of you that are online, Cheryl is going to drop a link into the chat that will take you to the handouts for today's webinar. So you'll be able to download those from that Dropbox. If you have difficulty accessing Dropbox, just let us know and we could email it to you, and those will also be put on the website tomorrow. In addition, if you have questions, we definitely encourage you to think about questions that you may have. We have a Q&A section of this Zoom webinar platform, so we'll ask you to direct any questions that you may have to the Q&A section in particular. That way we can make sure we do not miss any of those questions. Feel free to use the chat to say hello. Any type of engagement, we definitely welcome you to use the chat as well. But questions in the Q&A section. We also, if you have tech questions, we have live tech support here today. So we have Cheryl, who is part of our NFSN team, who will be able to answer any tech related questions that you may have. And we will try to answer any questions that you have at the end of the webinar. But if we are unable to, someone from the NFSN team will follow up with you after the webinar. And last housekeeping item to mention is that today's PowerPoint, as well as the handouts and the recording of today's webinar, will be available on the NFSN website by this time tomorrow. And last thing, when you exit today's webinar, an evaluation will automatically appear on your screen. So we do ask that you take the time to complete that, as it provides us with valuable feedback to inform future webinars. All right, so a couple of polls just to get a sense of who is here today. The first one is about your geographical location. So take a peek at this map. This map is just the map of the United States and its territories, but we do have options, international options as well. So you'll see on the poll that there's an option for Canada and for other international. And if you are from Canada or from another country, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. Would love to learn. Know that Canada is a huge country as well. So that would be great to hear more specifically where you're joining us from. All right, take a couple more seconds here and we will take a peek at the results for this webinar, or this poll. All right. All right, let's see those results, Cheryl. Okay, well, we have great representation from across the states, and no other folks will be listening in afterwards to the recording, but almost half of us today are from the South, so welcome, but we do have all of those areas represented. All right, the next poll we have is about your affiliation. So Cheryl is going to launch a poll about your affiliation. So when that pops up, just select which one you would most closely identify with. So maybe you are with a family resource center or a family resource center network or another type of family support program. We also have parent leader, early care and education, two different government sections there, or a private funder. And if you put other, feel free to enter in the chat just what your affiliation is. All right, let's take a peek at those results. Okay. All right, pretty great diversity here too. So looks like our largest group is about half of us are from family resource centers, but we do have other, we have the network level, we have other family support programs. We have early care, education, government, private funders, other too. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Some diversity in our affiliation. All right. Last one is about our level. So Cheryl's going to launch this last poll. And this one is about the level that you're working with. So maybe you're working at the policy systems level or at the management level, or maybe you get to work directly within a program and directly with families. And again, if you put other, feel free to share in the chat what level that you're working at. All right, let's take a peek at those results. Great. So great diversity here too. We have all of those levels represented. And again, it looks like that program direct services, the bulk of folks. So that is great. We know you'll find today really helpful. And the policy systems and management level, you will as well. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's want to just share a little bit more context before we get to hear from our presenters. And the first is just about the National Family Support Network. So the National Family Support Network were founded in 2011, and since then we have more than quadrupled in size. And now we have 41 member networks that represent more than 3,000 family resource centers that are serving more than 2 million people annually. And here are our buckets of work. All of the work that the National Family Support Network does relates to one of these areas of work. Oh, and I was ahead of myself on that slide. Sorry. So here's the areas of work. So connecting and convening our members, raising the visibility of the field, and promoting that family support and best practice. And that is kind of the area that we're falling into today. And our mission is to promote the positive outcomes for all families, children, and communities by leveraging the collective impact, state family resource center networks, and championing quality family support and strengthening practices and policies. And our vision, in short, is that map that you just saw a minute ago, that green map, that all of those states would be green, ensuring that all families across the country are supported by strong family resource centers with the backing of their networks in those states. And okay, so here's our roadmap for today. I'm going to share just a bit of context about the standards, and then we'll get to hear from the Healthy Family Programs in Texas and the Family Resource Center in Nova Scotia, Canada. Again, we'll have time for Q&A, and because you're going to hear from both of these wonderful programs, invite you to enter in questions that you're thinking of while they're presenting. You don't need to wait until the end to enter those. So again, click that Q&A portion. And then we'll close with some sharing of some resources and opportunities and the evaluation. So just want to provide a solid foundation, just in case you aren't familiar with the standards of quality for family strengthening and support yet. These are designed to be used by everyone. So whether you're a public department, foundation, a community-based organization, or families, everyone can use this framework as a tool for planning, providing, and assessing quality practice. The standards are unique because they integrate and operationalize the two key frameworks that were already in our field, the principles of family support that are developed by Family Support America and the Strengthening Families protective factor framework, the 5 protective factors, you may have heard of those, that were developed by the Center for the Study of Social Policy. So the standards uniquely integrate and bring those two frameworks together. One of the really great things is that these standards create a common language. So whether you are in a family resource center or a home visiting program, in a child development program, or any other program in the family support field, these standards create a common language so we can all get on the same page. And they also help ensure that families are supported and strengthened through quality practice. And a key thing to mention too, we're not trying to sell these standards. They are available with all of the implementation tools for free on the National Family Support Network website. Also want to mention too that these standards were revised back in 2021. I can't believe it's been 3 years now. We updated the standards with an eye towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as relevance for both the United States and Canadian context. And these standards have 5 core areas of practice, which I'll talk about at a high level. But again, I encourage you to download them if you haven't seen them in more detail. So the 5 core areas of practice, or the 5 sections of the standards that we call them as well, are family centeredness, family strengthening, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community strengthening, and evaluation. So you'll hear these talked about and mentioned a bit, but just know that these are the 5 areas of practice that the standards focus on. And then this is the last slide that I want to share with you for some context setting, which is around how programs are actually implementing the standards. So what does that look like? Where do they know where to start? This is a framework that is available as part of the standards implementation tools suite. For programs to be able to use as a bit of a roadmap. And so you may hear this reference, but if not, feel free to download this from the handout section that Cheryl put in the chat, because this gives us, as programs, as family resource centers, as healthy families programs, it gives us a framework to know where to start, what to do next, and then sample activities for each of those, and then the resources that are available to you along each of those steps. So not going to dive into tons of detail there, but just want to mention that this is a resource that is available to you as you are exploring your work with the standards. Okay. And with that, I'm really excited to introduce to you all the first program that we are going to hear from, which is the Healthy Families Program from Travis County, which is located in Austin, Texas. And I'm really excited to introduce to you Jennifer and Annika, who will talk about how they have seen the standards come to life in their work. So welcome, ladies. So glad that you're here.
Hello, hello.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We are
Yes.
absolutely excited to be here. Um, as Julie said, my name is Jennifer. I have transitioned into my role as administrative manager for National Family Support Network, but I'm excited to be here today with Annika to be able to talk about my previous program, Healthy Families of Travis County, and really just talk about how we have implemented the standards. But I will let Annika introduce herself a little bit before we go into that.
Hello, my name is Annika, like Jennifer said. I'm with Travis County Healthy Families. I'm a family support specialist here in the Austin, Texas area. I've been with the program for about, I think 6 years. And so I'm just excited to be here. So thank you.
Awesome. Julie, next slide, please. So Healthy Families Travis County, we are a smaller group. We've actually increased in size since you see these pictures. If you don't know, March is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. And so a lot of times you will catch us in our blue rainbows, which is at Wear Blue Day. That was last year. And then you'll see more of our team for our holiday party. That was one of our graduations. So next slide, please. Healthy Families Travis County has been around, Healthy Families America, let's back up a little bit, has been around since 1992, way before I got in this work. So it is a evidence-based, proved model that is amazing. It was developed and launched in 1992 by Prevent Child Abuse America. HFA, Healthy Families America, is in 48 states and has more than 600 home visiting sites. And that was from like 2019. So we are way over 600 now. So that is an amazing number. Healthy Families Travis County, though, which I will refer to as HFTC because it is a really long name, was launched 27 years ago and is currently housed in Travis County under the Office of Children's Services Division. Our Healthy Families Travis County program supports first-time parents in the Travis County area, right? So it doesn't matter about economic status. It doesn't matter anything. The only requirements are that they're in Travis County and they're first-time parents. Healthy Families Travis County is comprised of 3 units with up to 6 staff, which goes along with our HFA model and best practice standards. But when you add in the staff and the management team and any extra coordinators that we have got along the way, it's about 22 staff in total. So usually in an average year, Healthy Families is able to support over 150 families with at any given time with home visiting services. So that is an amazing number of engaged families for a completely volunteer program. So I love to highlight that. Annika and me represent the McVie side of it. So McVie, the Maternal Infant Early Childhood Home Visiting Unit. Originally, when we started 6 years ago,
Yeah.
there was one home visitor, myself, and a part-time manager. And in 6 years, and we're talking about 6 years, May, we have more than tripled size. So now we have one case manager, one part-time manager, and 4 caseworkers. And so it is an amazing, amazing thing to see the amount of growth that we have just in what we do, which is why the standards started coming up in 2023, is that we were serving more families, and in a McVie program, there are certain characteristics that we have to hit when we're supporting families. And so that was one of the things, is we wanted to make sure that our work was really, really making a difference. And so there was a lull in that 6 years. Clearly, COVID happened and the pandemic happened, and all of our programs went virtual. So we were a home visiting program. We're like, gotta pivot. Now everybody was getting tablets, everybody was getting on Zoom. We were trying to figure out the best app. Was it Zoom? Was it WhatsApp? Because again, our families are across different economic statuses, right? So making sure that everybody had access to be able to see a home visitor. Our home visiting programs in the most intense or most vulnerable portion of the program, which is our first time when they're that first year of baby's life and when they're pregnant, we're usually seeing those families once a week. And so that was something that we wanted to continue. As an HFA model, we do use the HFA best practice standards, but we really, like I said a little bit ago, wanted to explore deepening our practice in our community and making sure that we were making a huge impact. So in February of 2023, during the pandemic, our state federal funder, PEI, was pushing a lot of trainings and emphasizing the importance. And one of those trainings that came across our email was the standards. And so based off of the description and the accessibility of this training, it was a big deal for us to take it. So I went ahead and took that training. It was virtual still, and it was actually paid for by the Texas Family Support Network, which was amazing. So it again removed any barriers and allowed us to get deeper in our work. Next slide, please, Julie. And I'm going to let Annika talk about, she says it so well when she talks about intentionality and how we work with our programs. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about the intentionality and why we chose to go with the standards.
So, like Jennifer said, I'm gonna talk about intentionality with purpose, on purpose with purpose. My favorite saying to my moms is always make it make sense. And so in order for it to make sense, we have to make sure that we get on the level with our family so that they feel supported, they feel heard, they feel as if this program, the home visiting, is in support of them. Because a lot of times, they might not have that. And so that's why we make sure that the connection is always deeper, it's on top, and we're here to support them, to make them grow and understand and feel supported in all ways.
Yes, HFA is a very heavy assessment program, right? Making sure that babies are hitting their ASQs and all those things. And those are all very important. And so we also wanted to make sure while we were checking those boxes and making sure that they were getting those, that families felt at the center of our work, right? That families felt strengthened when we were doing our work. So that intentionality of make it make sense. Why are we doing this in this way? Does it look right? Does it fit our community? Or is there a way that we could adapt the model? And that's, again, where the standards were entered. Next slide, please. So after the February 2023 training, we actually went right into preparing with the standards. So March 23, we had a strategic planning planned. And I came back from February's standards and was like, this is what we got to do, guys. We've got to evaluate what we're doing. And what I love most about the standards is it gives you a foundation to start from. You're not wondering, you're not sitting here going, did I? What was it? Like, it gives you basic measurements to figure out, are we really founded? Are we really doing this at a high quality? Could we do it better? What is like the bare minimum to say we check the box, right? And that's what we're trying to move from, just checking boxes with as a program, to we really want to provide high quality work and engagement with our families, again, with that intentionality. So we started our strategic planning, and I will let Aunt Annika talk about what that looked like.
So we had a full day of planning. Half the day it was getting to know each other, self-care. So that the thing is, you have to make sure that we're okay so that we can help our family so that they can be better. So we made sure that in the process of self-care, we took those deep breaths, and I think we did yoga. We did a vision board of what we wanted the next 6 months to look like personally, and as far as the program with for our parents and for our families. And then the second part of the day, we had to dig deep, into assessing the program of what was needed, what things weren't working before that could be, that could be changed to work now. Like Jennifer said, we want to get away from just checking the boxes, because if you're just checking boxes, there's nothing personal about that. And so when you're a home visitor and you're in these homes, it has to be personal. You have to engage. So once we was digging deep in assessing the program and everything that was needed to better it, it came out great.
Yes, and just to dive a little bit deeper in that half day, we were very intentional. I know a lot of times you hear we're gonna go into strategic planning retreat, and I'm like, what is a retreat if we're doing all of this work? It's not retreating, we're just in another meeting, right? And so we were very specific, and I honestly feel it goes along with the standards when we talk about family centered, is that the staff in the program are also families themselves. And so centering it and making sure that the work and the staff all have a place at the table and feel comfortable and able to have those self-care moments. So we really did and take that time to be very intentional. That first part of that half day was absolutely no talking about work. You had to engage in anything but work, which is really hard when that's when you're with your coworkers, right? So it was a really good time. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into the juicy details about moving from foundational to high quality. So this was a metric and the line that we use across all of our assessment. And so I was so glad when we found this in the standards, is really being able to see, okay, this is a checkbox. You checked it off, you got it. But how do you move into that high quality, right? What type of formal structures or trainings or partnerships do we need to move to that next step? Next slide, please. Family centeredness. I will let Annika start.
So family centeredness, we went and we had to make sure that, again, that check box that we were talking about, it met the standards. So for instance, was our program welcoming? Some of the staff feedback was it was multiple locked doors, so it was hard for families to get in. There wasn't any signs, and it wasn't. So it was like if a family came, they didn't know necessarily where to go unless they went to security. Security led them up, but you had to be badged in. In order to be let up. And then it was a sterile, cold environment. It wasn't as welcoming and as, I guess, especially for kids, it was an office, it was just a space for us to work, so we had to make sure that when we got that feedback, when we improved, the families felt it. So how do we improve? We added welcome signs. So whenever we have a family day here, we always make sure we have signs, downstairs in the parking lot, maybe balloons, so that they'll know, okay, this is where I'm going. A greeter at every event. So we have somebody downstairs bringing you up. When you get off the elevator, someone's greeting you, taking you to the room. Because again, we don't want families to get, discouraged and be like, well, it's too much. I can't figure out where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. When I get there, I'm lost. So that's why we did that. And then we brought items to engage all family members. So we've had the mother, we've had the father, we've had aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, we've had grandparents there. So we wanted to make sure everyone in the family felt included in this, because it's not just about the mom and the dad and the baby. It's about your entire support system, your village.
And what I would like to add when we look at family centeredness, Healthy Families Travis County is a part of Travis County Health and Human Services. So it is a government entity that we represent. And so during that time of like when we're looking at family centeredness, there were things that we absolutely couldn't change.
Right.
The Healthy Families or Travis County was not going to change all those locked doors, right? And so how do we make it better? How do we engage families so it wasn't as cold? And that's what Annika was talking about, is that we met them at the door. We talked to them through the elevator. We made sure that, hey, we're going to go through these locked doors, but we're going to go through them together. And then when you get to the space, you are going to feel welcome. You're going to feel at home. All those on guard feelings, we want them to drop so that you can feel safe and we can have those deep conversations where you see a lot of growth. Okay, next slide, please, Julie. Family strengthening.
So family strengthening, of course, what it says, recognize and affirm, enhance families' capacity, recognize parent significance. So the thing is, when it comes to family strengthening, you have to make sure you're reassuring your families, because a lot of times they may be going through certain things, and it's like, I want you to know that I hear you, I'm here with you, and I understand what you're going through, and we're going to work through it. So it's like, for instance, if a mom is looking for a job and she hasn't had a job in a while, she finally gets a job, you recognize that and you're affirming her like, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad you found a job that you were looking for, and things will get better, because a lot of times they're thinking like, it's not going to get better, but it does. So we always try to make sure we recognize and affirm our mothers, our families, because when you're being affirmed, it means a lot for you, personally. And so we did that. How do we respond? In a year to a parent advisory committee was added to include family members, and then a parent cafe was added. So the PAC, I like to say the PAC, so I don't have to say the long words. The PAC was added so that other family members could feel involved. Again, you have the mom, you have the dad, you have the baby, but you have your village, you have your support system. So in order to make that better, we were able to include other family members so they could feel engaged and involved in the visits and the activities that we had. The parent cafe was added. I think the parent cafe has been a success. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on that, where you're coming in and we're doing different activities. A lot of our moms are quiet, they don't know anyone there. They're just there with their baby or their family member, and they're able to talk about things with other women that are the same, children are the same age. It's like, oh, your baby's 6 months, so is mine. So it was helping them so that they could they could have their own community and village as well.
Yes, and Healthy Families America, it has amazing best practice standards, which include recognizing and affirming parent strengths and just so many other tools that they use to strengthen families. The reason why we looked at this tool and the standards were so important was we were still missing components, which is what Annika referred to when she talked about our parent advisory committee. So we started our parent cafes in 2024. The planning started in 2023, and then we started in 2024. And from those parent cafes, there has been an actual development of our parent advisory committee, and really people just tapping in. And the beauty of the parent cafes is being able to see, like Annika said, not just mom and dad, but seeing grandmas and talking about parenting styles and breaking some of those generational things that happen, or just language around, oh, you don't need a car seat, or, I used to do this when I was younger. And so that is the beauty of having those parent cafes and that parent advisory committee, and then really being able to have those conversations around the table, which again strengthens your family. It allows a safe place to ask questions and just enhance the family's capacity, and just recognize, I love that we now have a parent advisory committee that is able to lead and say, this is what I need, or this is what I would love to see, or drafting different things. When you have a PAC, or a parent advisor committee, making sure that they really get a say in some of the things that they do, rather than just, is that wall, should that wall be pink or blue? Like really deepening the impact that our parent advisory committees can have. Next slide, please. Ooh, DEI, one of my favorites. Go ahead.
So DEI, the program respects, values, and embraces diversity. The program enhances the ability to navigate a diverse society, as well as engage in ongoing reflection and adaptation. How did HFTC respond? Bilingual parent cafes, and bilingual material. So in the parent cafe, you will have Spanish speaking. And so if I don't speak Spanish, it's unfair for the parent who is taking their time to come up, out of their day to spend with us for a couple of hours, not to have those materials. So we always have someone who can interpret or translate so they can feel, involved, and they can be engaged as well during the cafes.
Yes, one of the things when we look, I know we talked about the bilingual, but also just certain things. And when you look at the McBee program specifically works with African American or people of color, we started to get a lot of refugees and other people, and having to speak their language was a barrier, so getting those translation lines, but also understanding others' cultures, right? And so that's what I love about the DEI, is that we respect, value, and embrace diversity. And so it is, when you're doing a home visiting program like Healthy Families was, is we were going into people's homes and they would prepare these whole meals for us. And one of the rules in Healthy Families is that you're not supposed to take food from families. And so how do we embrace that? That is like it's almost like a slap in the face to a culture when they prepare a meal, right? And so we had to work around that, right? There was another example of every year they get graduation books that they can get signed by their teachers until they're in 12th grade. Our very first year of doing this, we ordered them in English. And one of the staff goes, "We don't have them in Spanish. Like, what are our Spanish families going to do?" And in all good intentions, one person's like, "We could just print out the Spanish and cite it in the book." But that's not the same experience. Like, those families deserve the same amazing experience as any family, right? And so we really did go ahead and reorder those books. But it's little things like that. So it's really being intentional. And does it serve everybody? Is it accessible to everybody? Can everybody even get in the door? And when they get in the door, can they understand what's being said? And can they understand it in a way, that everybody can have those conversations? Sometimes people are like, we'll just put a translator next to that person. No, we actually do our parent cafes in English and Spanish. So you'll see one facilitator doing Spanish and then follow up right there with English. So it's beautiful to see that just because you speak another language or physical disabilities or anything like that, we are going to create a safe space for you. Next slide, please. Community strengthening.
So with community strengthening, we would collaborative relationships, leadership development. So HFTC, our response, parent-led PAC development, parent cafe training for staff and parents, and then monthly meetings supporting with our newly formed PAC. So that pretty much went to understanding that when it came to PAC, understanding what the parents wanted, what they needed, the cafe training for the staff and the parents, because again, it was something new. We all had to learn how it went, how it was going to go, the structure of everything, and then having the monthly meetings supporting with our newly formed, PAC family.
Yes. And when we talk about collaborative relationships, Healthy Families, like I said, has been around for years, but really bringing in those community experts. So all of our parent cafes have centered around like baby's lifespan in different areas. And so we may have had a car seat, a water safety. These were all topics that the parents decided on themselves that were important to them. And then we provided relevant materials, but we brought the experts in and built the relationship. So yes, I may not know everything about water safety, but Collins Hope, they're going to connect you and they're going to get you. And we gave that warm handoff. We gave them that connection so that they could reach out directly to them and have a face or a person to talk to. So it's very beautiful. Like, we are very big on warm handoffs and relationships and making sure that the ball hopefully doesn't get dropped if we can make sure that that family gets there. We know how hard it is to access resources sometimes. And so we really, really focus on those relationships to eliminate some of those barriers. And leadership development, if I can't say it enough, invest, 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 not only in your staff, but in your parents. So many times we're like, okay, I want to pack or I want our parents to lead, and we don't give them the tools. It's like starting a new job and them saying, do you need anything? Well, I don't know what I need because I've never done this before. Yes, I'm a parent, or yes, I've done something similar, but give me the tools. And so that was the beauty of our parent cafes, is that we intentionally set aside funds to train staff and parents and to train them together, right? Because this is a parent cafe. When staff are sitting in the parent cafe, they are sitting in a parent chair. They're not sitting here as I'm the expert, listen to me. And so the beauty of them being able to go through training together and learn and grow together is an amazing, amazing thing. And then just the monthly meeting support. So, the PAC was drafted and now it's like, how do we continue to give ongoing support? And so there is a monthly meeting where they get to talk and do breakouts and grow as a PAC and learn new skills and tools. So yes, next slide, please. Lessons learned. Oh,
So when lessons learned, change definitely takes time. Meaning nothing happens overnight. It's going to take time for the system to get in place to make sure everything's going well, that we have, the things lined up for ourselves and the families. These tools must be utilized daily. Staff must be intentional with the standards, open and honest assessment of the program, and then the standards are an investment that will help keep balance and help prevent burnout.
let me tell y'all, I know if you had taken the standards, you guys have drank the Kool-Aid. I call it drinking the Kool-Aid. I was so excited in February 23. I said, for sure, by the end of our strategic planning in March of 2023, everybody is going to be on board. Like, everybody's going to know how to do it because they get as excited as me about it, right? But it didn't happen like that because, one, everybody else needed to be trained on the standards, right? I just came back with a bunch of information that I poured into them. But then we need to take time to train. And that's what I love about that continuum that Julie shared earlier, is that plan, prepare, promote, like all of those things. Every one of those steps takes place. And so making sure that you have time. We are just in year 2, and in year 2 we have expanded. And I was gonna say, and I would accredit that to us taking the standards and hearing from our staff and really being able to assess. Again, we have 3 units at Healthy Families Travis County. The McVie unit has been the one that has been piloting, per se, the standards and how we use it in our continuous quality improvement. And you can absolutely see the engagement of families go up, the empowerment of families go up, the strengthening of families go up, the diversity, right? So I talked about McVie usually only works with African-American families. Through the Parent Cafe, we were able to work with bilingual families. So it has been an amazing thing, but it all started with an open and honest assessment of, oh, we are just checking that box. Like we say, families is in our name. And so to be family centered, what does that really mean? And do we all speak that language? And how do we do that? And that's the use of those tools and that continuum, utilizing on a regular basis. So I would like to say thank you for listening to us. I am going to pass it to Kara from Canada and let her introduce herself and tell us more about how she uses the standards.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. I really enjoyed that, Anika and Jennifer. So thank you. I am, in fact, coming from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and would just like to acknowledge that I work and live and learn and play. And our centers are located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And this territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, and we're all treaty people. So I've been in military family support for over 24 years. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of information about our center, what it's about, and then our journey with the standards. And so as Jennifer and Anika said, it is a journey and we are at different places and different things. And so I'll share some of what we've learned and how we got here. So our purpose is to strengthen the well-being of all those who share the unique experience of military life. And so we are responsive to the ever-changing challenges of military families. The program that we're a part of nationally, the Military Family Services Program's mission is to contribute to the operational readiness of Canadian Armed Forces by providing services that enhance family resilience and stabilization in the face of military challenges. Next slide. Oops, and you can go keep to the next one. And so we were established in 1986 as a nonprofit organization. We're one of 32 military family resource centers that are across the country. There are also centers in Europe and the United States where Canadian Forces members serve. We are located on one of the largest bases in the country and responsible for a large geographical area of supporting families. So we understand the military lifestyle because many of our staff members have lived it, and many of our staff members have served or have been the children of serving members or as spouses of military members. Our team has a long history of established relationships in the community, and strengthening collective impact initiatives and partnerships are important to the work that we do. Being in the community and the outreach components in terms of school outreach and partnering with those in the community that do things like early intervention are integral to us being able to navigate families to supports. The military in Canada is different in some ways, so I'm not sure how much the people that have joined us today have experience with the United States. So our families in Canada primarily live off bases and wings. So yes, some do live on, but the majority live off wings and bases. Our children attend civilian schools, and family members would access medical care in the civilian system. So just to give you a little bit of perspective there. Our board of directors is comprised of a minimum of 51% military family members. And so that ensures that the voice of military family members govern and are able to direct, make sure that the services that we offer meet the needs of military families. Our services are confidential, so we do not report to the chain of command. We're a nonprofit organization with the board of directors, so we're separate. And so everything is confidential in terms of the supports that families would access. So each MFRC has a core services, but locally we would look at the needs of the community where we're located, and we would navigate and support families to connect to services that best meet their needs. And we do not duplicate programs in the community. So I'll speak a little bit more about that as well. So we offer care across a continuum of support. And so we have 3 levels of support. The first level of support is information referral. So we have a 24-hour information and referral line, for instance, where families can call to get information. This is self-serve information that we would have on our website about different things that families would require support about. This is also the level of support that we provide in terms of engaging the community with one another and getting into the community. Our level 2 supports are navigational supports, and we have navigators that support families with things around inclusion. We have career supports. We'll talk some about the unique military lifestyle components that we support. And so we have about 8 to 9 navigators that will support families with that. And at level 3 is our social workers who work with individualized interventions and support families when they require short-term counseling or in situations that there might be crises. So across those 3 levels of support. Next slide, please. So for our program, there are 3 unique military journey characteristics that we support military and veteran families. And those are relocation. So the reality that families may have to relocate at different times in their careers and how that impacts the family. So from children having to start schools in new location, from families who have children with special needs and are having to get on a different wait list and for different services in another province, for spouses that may have to give up careers and find new employment in new locations. So there are specific and unique things that happen around the relocation component, along with perhaps moving to exciting places and meeting new people. And so there is a combination of challenges and also growth opportunities there. Absences, that's a big component, of course, is those are training and deployments. And that's when families can be separated because of those types of activities. And then transitions. And so that's the element of what that is like for a family to come into the military and also that transition out of the military. And so very much our supports are focused on these three. And additionally, there's a recognition of 3 family challenges as well in terms of financial, mental health, and the couple relationship. So those are the other aspects as well. In Halifax here, we have the Navy, one of the coasts that has a Navy. And so we have high operational tempo. And so family members are often separated for different intervals from their family members. We also are unique in that we support Air Force, Army, and Navy families, regular force and reservists, and medically releasing members and medically released veterans are part of the catchment area for us. And services will have different eligibility requirements depending on how directly impacted they are by the military life. Next slide, please. So we do recognize this family-centered approach, and this is what brought us, and I'll speak more to kind of why we came towards the standards, and definitely this family-centered approach and recognizing that each family has their own unique situation and experience. And so we need to be able to make sure that our services are able to address those individual circumstances with each of the needs and strengths of those families. So we're able to define the family as the Canadian Armed Forces member and anyone significant to them. So that could be a spouse, that could be a partner, that could be children, that could be parents, relatives, anyone they consider to be family. And so we honor the diversity of families by taking that family-centered approach to service delivery, recognizing the complex and ever-changing needs of families. And so really trying to make sure we have a high degree of flexibility and responsiveness. A component of this, and this fits with the standards, of course, a lot is around the family-to-family support and the connections with one another. So the importance of being able to make those connections in different locations to do them again and again. So that's a skill set certainly that we try to support families, because if you have to move, you have to then build those systems again somewhere else. And so that's a component for sure in the practice that we serve. And so again, when appropriate, we will also refer to the community. So we're not meant to do everything, but we try to be the place that can then navigate families, again, if they're new to the area, to be able to know where they can go for supports. So what brought us to the standards is we were familiar with, there was different versions in Canada. There were some through the Canadian Association of Family Resource Programs, now Families Canada. BC also had some standards that we were looking at, and also we were looking at information from Family Support America over the years. And so we were looking for evidence-based foundation pieces to assist in creating the clarity on how we offer services. So getting away from not just this is all of what we do, but how do we actually deliver those? And the standards are able to provide that support. Our center had taken part in some accreditation processes, so there was definitely a buy-in to that. And in 2020, the Military Family Services Program was undergoing modernization. And so this was another opportunity to be able to take the standards as a foundational piece in looking at our work. It was interesting to hear Jennifer and Annika speak about COVID, because certainly that also created an opportunity to look at our services in a different way. And so it was quite timely that we started to take the standards and to do more training and taking a look at what those would look like. So not all of the standards are applicable to us. That's okay. You can go to the next slide. So what happened was we started with one staff person who took the standards certificate training, which then led to all of our staff taking the training, and all of our staff. So that didn't matter if you worked in finance or if you were working in information referral or if you're one of our social workers, everyone took, and that was really important for that common language and expectations for us to be able to speak about our work. So although there are differences in our program, we were able to really match them up. And so, for instance, we don't just serve families that raise children. And so we will support, for instance, it could be a 20-year-old military member. They may not have a partner yet, but they have parents that are very invested in them. And in particular, when they're deployed, parents are very invested in them. So we do serve a different community. And so some of our programs are not going to be as strong in those components. And that's the importance of that community piece and us being able to work with the community and collective impact and who else is able to provide some of those supports. We don't offer parenting programs per se, except those, for instance, like parents helping children through deployment and how do they do that. We do offer a prenatal, and we really work on that one around couples relationship and how the military lifestyle is going to potentially impact families and how can we support them in their resiliency in having the child, what does that mean, and their relationship and how that interacts with being a military family. So those are some examples of just how we differ in those ways. So common language, I'll say that one again. That is a really big one that we continue because some of us were using language, but what did that mean? And so how did we get a shared understanding? When we talk family-centered, what did that mean? And so this was the opportunity for us to get on the same page. Next slide. It really fit as well with our funder, who really made it clear in this new framework. And I use this quote over and over again in our training, and that's just that reminder, and that service providers should be educated, trained, and supported in evidence-based practices, and they must be held accountable for the value of care they provide. And the standards are one of these aspects that support us in that type of work. Next slide. So how have we used these standards? So we have used them as an assessment to see where we are. So again, that beautiful slide that we saw earlier from high quality and understanding. It's a really great exercise also to understand where people think they are, because sometimes there's differences in the assessments that we do about where we feel programs are or where we ourselves are in our practice. So that's a great opportunity to be able to do that. And that's had some great conversations and us talking about our practice and what it looks like. It's allowed us to demonstrate that we are making evidence-based decision-making. So that's been important for our funder from that perspective, and to be able to implement best practices and strengthen our current services. And we've been able to focus staff training on those 5 areas of practice. And so unpacking each of those has been really important. Next slide. So staff training is one of the places. So yes, all staff were able to participate in the training, but then we all came back together. And so then what did that mean in our circumstances and what were we going to do with it? So we've spent quite a bit of time in this staff training component. One of the tools that we use here at the center are called service design cycles. And so before we offer any program or service, there are a variety of questions in terms of our planning to be able to go through. And so what we're able to do is take some of those standard pieces and build them right into that design cycle so that people can do the planning beforehand and can make those considerations and how they organize. So the great example earlier in terms of how are you making that program welcoming. So before, we make programs welcome is what we'd say. Well, how do you do that? How do you actually tease out the actual activities that are going to make that? I love that kind of like that analysis, even of like the physical, where things were locked, or so what does that building look like? What languages, how are they seeing the materials that you're presenting? All of those pieces are built into the pre-place as much as possible for us to be able to plan. And then of course the evaluation component afterwards. And so building those standards in there has been really important. It's informed our policy and standard development. That has been important. So one of our goals at the center is strengthening our team. and things around wellness strategies and considering aspects of staff's family time and the importance of making sure that those are reflected in policies. So those things have also been informed and supported by the standards. And the practice component, which you brilliantly did before me, which was so fantastic, but really what are the everyday actions and how that support is provided. And so that's the other aspect that we've spent time unpacking. We have a variety of people with different backgrounds. And so this is a great opportunity to be able to really practice. Everybody has their own way of doing things, but to be able to practice commonly with those standards has been really important for how we do things. Next slide. So some of the lessons along the way. So I would definitely confirm that it's an ongoing process. This is not a one and done. And as I'm sure all participants on today recognize. So it's an ongoing process that we are committed to and how that unrolls. Staff engagement is critical. So it was really important to get buy-in from all staff and make sure that they were part of the training as well. It was hugely beneficial as well to hear from other programs that offer family support in different contexts, but there's so many similarities. So that was an important component. I would say there's some pros and cons. We had staff kind of take it at different intervals. So the pro to that was staff were able to and came back really excited, having heard about different people's experiences and how people are thinking about using them or are using the standards. It just took us a while to be able to be as a whole come together to talk about that, since we kind of had them go at different times. So there were pros and cons to be able to do that. It's definitely helped us to identify gaps for growth and learning. Jennifer and Annika, you guys spoke of that as well. These are the places that we identify as growth and building that into how we move forward. Also a recognition that we're not going to be high standards in all areas. And so really taking the time to try to figure out the places that we want to concentrate on. You can't do it all at once. And so the importance of kind of seeing where our programs and services are and what we're doing. Where are we at the foundational level? Which ones we want to prioritize to move? And the time that we want to spend in there. And so a couple of examples of those is just in terms of relationships. So that is like a reoccurring, in terms of that quality of standards, that relationship that staff have with families. And so we've spent quite a bit of time unpacking what does that mean to meet that family support principle number 1 around relationships. What does that look like? So we're spending quite a bit of time unpacking that. The engagement. So a lot of people will use parent advisory councils, and those can work really well. We're trying to think of, because of our geographical area, because we have a lot of different perspectives and people that we serve, we're trying to come up with some creative ways of engaging families. Some families will engage with us in person, some will only ever engage with us virtually, and some may only engage with us at different times, so in around a deployment. So how do we ensure that engagement in different ways, different delivery modes. And so that's one of our goals for this year. So again, the standards were able to kind of prioritize the aspects and the elements that we want to spend more time on. And it's helped us to also identify areas of success. And that's always important in the work you do when you have your head down and you're doing the work, is to be able to come up for air and take a look around and see where are the places that we're actually doing this well. So that's been super important as well, to be able to spend time in that space. So that's like a quick kind of overview of what we've done within. The last piece I'll show you. So I'll thank my colleague that's allowing me to show this video. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to hear it. It's not great quality, but I guess what I wanted to say is amongst all of this is the opportunity to have fun. And I think, talked about self-care in the first presentation and the importance of the care that we provide. That you need to have these moments. And so we also had the opportunity for one of our colleagues to take some training, facilitator training, and really came back with some different things to try out. And one of them was the recognition that sometimes when we use our whole body or we use physical, it allows a different part of the brain to retain different pieces of information, as well as there's different learners amongst us. And so this was an opportunity for us to put the challenge forward for groups of our staff to be able to take the 5 standards, so family-centeredness, family strengthening, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community strengthening, and evaluation, and what physical symbols, charades, if you like, would represent those. And so this video, again, you might not be able to hear, but it gives you an opportunity, and thank you for my colleague that bravely let me show this. It wasn't meant to necessarily go to a wide audience, just their attempt to be able to put that together. And so we called it the 5 Fab, and it gave them the opportunity to practice. So I will leave you with that and just say very grateful for the standards in terms of family practice and the professionalizing of this field that is so important. And it's been a pleasure to present.
Family centeredness, family strengthening, diversity and inclusion, community strengthening, and evaluation.
Well, thank you so much, Kara.
Families.
And thank you so much to Jennifer and Annika as well. It was so wonderful hearing about your programs and the incredible work you're doing, and how you're able to advance that work through using the standards. So thank you again so much. Just want to remind our participants, if you haven't already, feel free to enter questions into the Q&A portion of the Zoom webinar platform. While you're thinking of those questions, I'm just going to share a couple of resources and events that are available to you through the national network. And so the first one is a couple of other webinar Wednesdays that are coming up. We have the next 2 weeks, we have really exciting webinars that we think you may enjoy. So next week's is about family resource centers and how they are supporting parents and caregivers of teens, which I'm excited to listen to myself. And the following week, we are going to be hearing from the Washington Family Support Network and their network and how they have grown over the years. So just as a reminder too, if you're interested in looking at other programs and how they're implementing the standards, we have another recorded webinar that you can access on the standards tab of the Webinar Wednesday too. So as always, these are free and available to anyone. There was some mention today about parent advisory committees and just the value of those to the families that we're serving. So one of the ways that we can think about how to start a parent advisory committee or strengthen one that we already have is through this training. And so this is co-trained by a NFSN team member and an experienced national parent leader. And these are offered periodically throughout the year. So the next one is coming up, and I believe there's still space, so you can sneak into this training. Registration ends tomorrow for this one, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. And the standard certification trainings. You heard 2 great examples from both the Texas network as well as from Canada. So the Texas network is an example of a family support network that offers the trainings within their state. So you can find out when upcoming ones are for particular states on the certification training page of the NFSN website. And we do also offer them on a rolling basis throughout the year as well that are open to anyone. So feel free to check out the website. The next one coming up that's open to everyone is in May, and you see the deadline there for that. Another opportunity that we're really excited to share with you is the Together for Families International Virtual Conference. So this is co-hosted by the National Family Support Network and Families Canada, the organization that Kara referenced earlier, as well as the Center for the Study of Social Policy and the National Resource Center National Forum in Ireland. So this is a global conference that's applicable to folks working at the program level, network level, systems level. There's different tracks you can look at. And we actually are currently accepting calls for proposals. So if you are interested in presenting, be sure to go ahead and apply. There's still time to do so. So May 2nd is the deadline, and you can see here the different tracks that will be kind of those buckets for the conference. So encourage you to apply if you are interested, but a really, really great way to connect with folks from across the globe. And we also, related to this event, is the virtual kickoff event. So you may want to save the date for this. Registration's not quite available yet, but at this event, just an hour, we will provide a sneak peek of the conference sessions. We will have early access, your first access to the early bird registration. There'll be an opportunity to win some valuable raffle prizes, and it'll just be a lot of fun. I know last time we created the soundtrack that we were going to use for the Together Families Conference, and just a really fun hour together to be able to kick off the Together for Families conference season. So that's the couple of resources and events that we wanted to share with you. And so now that we have done that, just want to go back to the Q&A portion and take the opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. And let's see here. Okay, so there is a question, and this, I think this would be great to hear from both Travis County and from Kara too. So this question is from Nora. She said she's creating standard operating procedures for the standards and asking about documenting those to ensure that you are on the right track or complying.
All right. So Healthy Families in general does a lot of documenting and data. This is a little bit different in how we utilize our standards to support like staff and engaging families, right? And so this looks more like every week we have supervision, which is a part of Healthy Families. So management meets with staff, and during that time frame is when we will look at, there's usually 4 weeks in a month, we'll look at the different standards, right? So we'll look at family centeredness, like how has that affected your work? Like, are you feel like you're do you feel like you're able to do what you need to do? Do you feel like you're really family centered? We also do check-ins around our own staff. Like, do they feel like, in some of those pictures you saw, we actually had like staff kids in there, right? So does the program support you and your family? And so we just look at it through that different angles that we're able to talk about the different topics. And then it goes in the like supervision document. But also from that supervision, when we get ready for strategic planning, we're able to pull stuff in real time and say, okay, staff during supervision over the past 6 months have said, I don't feel connected because X, Y, and Z. And then we're able to compile those and actually go through in strategic planning and say, okay, this is what has come up. How do we address this? Or is this like a foundational? How do we do this in a higher standard? And that's how we document it at Healthy Families.
Great answer, Jennifer. I would say we're still trying to find our way in terms of the documentation. So the service design cycles are the opportunity in terms of an evaluation at the end to be able to measure where we are with some of those components. Primarily, I think we're still in the informal space of being able to, and so trying to figure out our documentation way forward. We certainly document a lot of different things in different, client management systems, and there's different aspects, but in terms of how they line directly up with the standards, I would say we're still in development on that. So it's great to hear how others are doing it.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a place to start, that program self-assessment tool is a great way to start. I can share just anecdotally, prior to joining the national network, I was with a family resource center here in upstate New York, and we used that tool. It wasn't linked to particular outcomes or anything, but more as a way for the network to be able to say, oh, it looks like a lot of family resource centers are needing some work in this field or needing some training in this area. And it was a way for them to identify. So that was really helpful for us as a network. Yeah. Any other questions?
I really can't emphasize more than you already have, but I will. That program self-assessment tool, Julie, is amazing and phenomenal. And we bring it out, even though we've done it one time, like we did in year 1, and we do it in year 2, because again, that continuum allows you to continue to move and not get comfortable, right? Like, hey, we now have like someone greeting them. but what else can we do, right? How can we, simple things that we had childcare in our parent cafe. We had childcare like on the side and then the group tables in the middle. And from that one, we were like, that's really not family centered because all the families were trying to go watch their kids on the corner. And we're like, we're going to change this, right? Like this is something that you can utilize on a regular basis and really see. And so that's like putting it up, like I have it hanging in my office to just like as a reminder, is this family centered? But in real time, we ended up moving the tables on the outside and putting a big mat in the middle for the kids to play in the middle and families to get on the floor together in the middle. And it just brings a different type of community, but that is at like in real time, assessing it and moving it forward on that dial. So yeah.
It's a great example, Jennifer. And I think, yeah, it's the ability to recognize that in different environments, like you said, sometimes some environments can be restrictive. So we work within some military, like physical areas that we don't have control over, but even just as a homecoming or departures and how we can support families and making it welcoming, accessible to families. So it might be accessible to sailors, but that might not be accessible for others. And how do we think about that to support young children or older people and people with different, abilities? And so really, yeah, exactly. Using those tools every day to be able to do your assessments.
Right. Thank you so much. One other question came in, which is about their organization getting ready to recruit for a parent advisory committee. And they are asking, how can you get parents excited to be part of a parent advisory committee?
I was trying to unmute myself, sorry. Um, one way we do it as far as getting parents excited and engaged is we talk to our parents about it. I always talk to my moms about what we have going on. I'm like, oh, we have a parent cafe going on. And it's gonna be talking about water safety. I think that's our June one. I think it's June, May or June. And so we're like, you're gonna get a life vest, you're gonna get to maybe do swim lessons. So, it's just pretty much explaining to them what the perks are, shall I say, to get them excited to do it. But I just feel like we just communicate with them and just tell them what it is. Like, this is what this month is. This the next month. I know we have Father's Day coming up, Mother's Day and Father's Day. So Mother's Day, of course, which is in May, we're going to center around, our moms and things like that. And then Father's Day, we're going to really encourage the dads to come because it's it's Father's Day month, quote unquote. So you just really, in order to get them excited, you just tell them about it and just be honest with them. I think if you're honest with them and tell them what it is, there's no surprise. It's like, hey, we're on this. And you tell them you have little, gifts for them. It always works when there's some incentives there. If you tell me you have a $25 gift card for me to come and sit and give my opinion for an hour or two, I think I'm going to give my opinion. So, I think that's how we more so do it in Healthy Families.
One thing that you always say, and I'm going to steal your line because I love your line, the make it make sense line is super important, that we realize that our parents do not have like hours and hours and hours of time. So the planning and preparation is key in getting ready for a pack, right? And so we started planning and preparing last summer to launch in January, and we actually pushed back to February because we need a little bit more time. But we really started that process, and it started at the top, right, with management, and then it was getting feedback from staff, right? Because staff are the ones who are, like she said, going out in the community and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. And so if staff don't know what they're doing,
Right.
how can you get families excited about being a part of it? So, right. So it's equipping staff with the right tools and the words and knowing what they're getting into and committing to so that they can explain that to families, right? And then we did a big, like, not party per se, but a like brunch session where we came and we talked about it in a parent cafe setting. We're like, these are some of the expectations, and really laid it out, because I think that parents, whether it's paid or not, want to give where they live. So if I'm a part of a family resource center, if I'm a part of HFA, I genuinely usually want to give in some type of way. But if I don't know my expectations, I also don't want to fail at it. I need to know like what you want of me and if I can actually do it, or is there some other roles that I can play in this, right? That may not be as time demanding. And so I think that's really clear in making sure that you lay out expectations and requirements. So that means in that prep time, you guys are understanding this is how we want our PAC to flow. Parents we need a president, we need a like all of these roles to really lead it in however you set up your PAC.
Great ideas and great feedback there. And I'm just going to put a plug in. This is coming from Julie, not the NFSN employee, but Julie, the Family Resource Center employee for 10 years. I actually had the opportunity to participate in the NFSN PAC training as a FRC employee. It was the very first one back in 2017. And I love the concrete tools. I loved like all of the things. It gave us matrix, a couple of matrix and different diagrams to use to determine like how to have a diverse committee, what are the steps of establishing a committee, just all of those concrete tools. And so just putting a plug there too, if you're thinking about like, okay, how do we, place the value? How do we do all of these things? So just throwing that out there too. And if there's not any other questions, want to say thank you again to our amazing presenters, to Jennifer, Annika, and Kara. Thank you all again for presenting and lending your expertise and your experience and all of those lessons learned with our participants today. And thank you all for being here today and for joining us for the webinar. Just as a reminder, when you exit out today, a brief evaluation will pop up on your screen, and it is brief, I promise. We do really appreciate you taking the time to provide that feedback on the evaluation. It really does help provide input for future webinars as we are planning. And yeah, thank you again so much for participating. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye.